Gonna be an interesting chat. How you doing, buddy?
I can't complain. How about yourself?
Crazy. I might actually be a full-time freelancer in like a month.
Very
So
nice.
yeah, yeah. Finally getting to the point where I'm just like, I can finally say I'm employed by me and just for me. That's fantastic, right?
That's
So
exactly. That's the goal for for all of
yeah, yeah. So I mean, it's been a long time coming, but something I'm really proud about. That you just finished another campaign, right?
Yes, wrapped up the end of April, and I just launched the pre-launch or the pre-sale page for through Backer Kit, and so just letting that run for another month. The proofs are approved through the printer, so those books should hopefully be coming within the next couple weeks, as long as
Yeah.
paper still lasts, right?
Well, as long as paper's still a thing, right? But I mean, we're living in a bit of a crazy time right now, for sure.
It's true.
Yeah, everything just seems to be in upheaval mode right now. Maybe that's a good thing in the long run, but the next little while is going to be kind of bumpy.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. Well, I mean, I'm just kind of keeping it as is, and just keeping that mask heading straight. Keep on going.
well, yeah, it's all you can do, right? Like you can only try to. How do I put this? Um, I finally just got your message, by the way, which I think is hilarious. Facebook is right on time, ladies and gentlemen. That's all I gotta say. But no, with sometimes like all you can really do is just stay the course, right? Like there's a lot you don't have any like control over. So all you can do is just, well, what can I do right this moment in time?
Oh yeah, I mean, as long as you are like prepared to make lateral moves or to be able to anticipate for it and keep your audience aware of the situation, I think you'll be all right.
Well,
I
yeah,
think people these days understand a little bit more when it comes to like things that come out of the blue, due to current world standings.
yeah. I think at this point we're used to a little chaos in the world. Like I said, I told him the soft air, folks. Like I'm really jealous of his mug. His mug is just ridiculous. Is there a story behind that one?
So this was when I turned 21. This was like one of my birthday gifts, and of course I had to drink a lot of shots out of it.
Oh,
Uh,
geez.
yeah. So I've had it ever since. Um, it, so the night that I got it, I don't remember much of it. So
See, in Canada, it's 19 when we have that. So I just got really hammered that night. Like, really, really hammered.
yeah.
I could do it.
So it was funny because like my birthday that weekend, I turned on a Thursday, and when I was in college, it was called Thirsty Thursday, and it would have quarter drafts. So it was just like, that was my first time to go. Um, it was a good time. And then I went home that Friday and went out with my family, my friends at home with one. And it was basically, so it was a debauchery weekend for me. That
Yeah.
it all was just like, I remember bits and pieces of.
It's like I had a good time. That's all I remember.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
yeah, it's all good, man. So, I mean, you've done a lot of comics now. Like I'm gonna say it was by the way, I still think I am going to be picking this up at some point, probably next month on through the backer kick. But I wanted to say that Snowplow #1 still been my favorite book this year. So
Oh, nice.
yeah, I really enjoyed it. It was a it's a great collaboration you and Mog have. It's also a little bit of a different voice than the current one is, right? It feels a little bit more literary, for lack of a better term.
Yeah. Well, I think we're going with like Nightwolf being more of a modern age kind of thing. It's talking like like you would in today. It's like we have that kind of like same dialogue these days. Whereas like with Snowpaw, like you said, it's the time period piece. It's the dialogue. It's a literary kind of a historical piece, if you will, and I made sure that came through in the story as much as possible.
Which I think is really cool. Actually, I really, really, I think it added something to the story because it doesn't feel like a superhero book. Nightwolf kind of feels a little bit like a superhero book, and there's nothing wrong with that, by the way. It's just that's the tone you're going for.
Right.
Whereas Snowpaw feels like like I'm telling an autobiography almost. Like how did she become who she is,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I
Yeah,
think that's a very different that's a different approach. It's a little bit of a different kind of story, right? And I think that's it's a good range for you. So
thank you.
and also for Mog who's illustrating it. So was that like a deliberate conscious decision like you and Mog discussed that, or was it something like you knew that this was the kind of story this was going to be?
I think I wanted with Snowpaw, I wanted it to be different. I wanted it to be like you have the typical werewolf stories. A lot of horror movies. I have like that it's during modern times. You have like the transformations, the murder, the death, the fighting. All that, the blood guts. With this, I kind of wanted to go a little bit more whimsical. Being in the 19th century, um, and for the tale, I wanted it to be more something that you feel. Um, and again, I wanted it to be like something that you weren't like. There was even times where I stopped writing something. It was like, no, this has been done. I can just do something else. You know what I mean? Like, so it made me. It kind of trained me to go a lateral as far as like different storylines versus like different things that I've seen before that I had to like no stay away.
No, but I think that it's probably going to inform your writing going forward too a little bit too, because now Nightwolf, like, okay, I know where the story goes, but now it's like I'm looking at it going like, okay, how can I do this differently now? Because I did it differently here.
Right.
Maybe I should do it differently here too.
Hmm. Yeah, I think it's definitely the fact that like I have 12 issues of Nightwolf already scripted. There are elements that I do change in it when I'm lettering the books, just to kind of make sure that things are as far as like I wrote that years ago, right? So I want to make sure that like when I've grown as a writer, that I can see the things that are working that I need to tweak just a little bit to make it better. But it's still like the 12 issues is already scripted, so the story is pretty much planted. Whereas like after issue 12, 13 has been started, but I have
Yeah.
like a roadmap in my head where I got a timeline where I'm going with it. But it also leads now like I can say, okay, I've done this. I'm doing this completely different with Snowpaw. I'm going to try and take it to a whole another level, starting from 13 on.
Well, yeah, I think that's the cool thing when you start doing different kind of stories. Like I'm playing around. Like I said, I'm doing advertisements now. I'm also doing like I do this podcast, and it informs all my writing in some way or another because I think about different ways to tell the story,
Hmm.
and I think that's very important because like in one real sense, every story's been done. The real challenge is how to best tell it as the best we can tell it, and the more
Yeah.
tools you get,
Hmm.
the better you can tell that story, or the more different ways you can tell that story.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think that's interesting too because you scripted 12 issues initially, right?
Mhm.
So how much of it has changed?
I'd say mostly the like so just some of the dialogue. I mean, by the time I get to the lettering, the script is basically, as far as like the action is already kind of laid out because Carlos has done all the groundwork. So sometimes he actually forces me to make changes too because either like if something was lost in translation or I didn't catch something, that I was like, okay, well let me change this dialogue around to fit the page now. So it's more so like I said, it's kind of like oh, that line was bad, I should really rewrite that, or oh, the page kind of changed, so now the tone of it's changed, so I kind of have to change how it's being said.
Yeah. So for the first 12, then you got it pretty nailed down where you're going.
Hmm. Yeah.
So is there going to be like a second 12?
So the plan is to keep it as an ongoing as much as possible. I would really love to. So the way I kind of saw it when I first started writing was originally making it like a trilogy movie. So like the first 12 would be a movie, the next 12 would be another movie, and then so on and so forth. So if I did, um, but also then like I kind of when I started working with Carlos, this was back when Walking Dead, the TV series took off. So I'm like, oh well, hey, maybe that's a better way to go. Instead of movies, go long term with books. And so, just as long as I keep putting out issues, I have more to work with.
No, it's fair. No, it's just like it's interesting to see how a story evolves. Like right now, I'm doing Russian fairy tale with An, or I'm working on something with her,
Yeah.
and I find like for me, my plans go out the window as I keep writing. It just seems to be like you have this good idea. And don't get me wrong, I still have a general idea where I'm going, but I give myself a lot of leeway how I get there because I realize that I might change my mind, or it's the case sometimes the characters tell me that this is better.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes like when you're writing, they kind of lead you in a direction. You're like, oh, that's actually better than I originally planned. And that's kind of like with like issue 2 of Snowpaw. As I was, because I Snowpaw, I'm writing more on the fly, because that wasn't in a planned out long term series. So like I'm trying to get it out as fast as possible for Mog to be able to, which she's 67 or 67 to go. That's what I'll be doing after. But so when I was scripting issue 2, I wanted to make sure, like, so this has a bit of a different tone and pace than issue 1, just because, like, the end of issue 1 left you right in the meat of what was, you were starting to pick up an action, right? So
Well,
this
yeah,
yeah, so this brings you right back into that action, and there's a big chunk of this issue, where you're going to see like even like for this young, werewolf, like her wits about her, are more atypical than like a normal werewolf who just turned for the first time. She'll actually come up with like something on her own, kind of against others' plans, if you will, without getting too much into the detail. But like it's just, she's so headstrong and so like strong-willed that she's able to get herself out of like things that are happening. And then we kind of pick up also like so after all that action is set, we move to England. So we pick up and we move to a different location. So I mean, there's a lot going on with this issue, and there's a lot of things that like I wanted to put into this issue that I actually had to cut out. You know what I mean?
no. Well, I mean, like it's interesting because like Nightwolf has her. That's kind of his advantage in the modern setting.
Mhm.
She has no one. At least no one has been revealed yet. Right.
Right. Well,
So
so she will have somebody. They're introduced into this issue. They kind of had a quick glimpse in the first issue. If you recall the wolf and the lion, they make a bigger appearance, but as they're trying to protect her, she's like, "Get off me! I'm doing this myself." Kind of a situation, Whereas like Nightwolf was like, "What do I do? What do I do?"
well,
you know?
then maybe that's where maybe Nightwolf did it better than she did. I don't know. We'll find out as the series goes. But she's against a stronger, more conniving opponent. You can see that.
Mhm.
And again, initially, just how you set that up, she's kind of on her own. Now she might have some help, but if she's like, I don't need help, it's like that usually leads you into deeper trouble. Not usually
Right.
goes the other way,
Yeah.
right? So
And that we're also going to see a lot of. So with her, being a kind-hearted, strong-willed character, there's also going to be a revenge factor into that, where like she's going to be kind of trying, the decision that she has to make moving forward. Whether she's out for revenge or she'll actually or go the more merciful route, if you will. So we're going to kind of see her here on that for a while. Which will be an interesting thing to see, how that develops.
that's funny because I've been talking about forgiveness a lot on the podcast. Actually, well, not just on the podcast. In real life, I had a friend of mine. She's going through a really hard time. I'm not going to go into details about her own issues, right? Because that's not what this podcast is about. But we talked about forgiveness, right? And one of the things I think is really interesting is how I see forgiveness is it's not really about the person you're forgiving. It's about you.
Mhm.
It's about you and what you're willing to hold on to and what you're willing to let go. And I think that's an interesting question because um, a lot of us hold on to our pains, like even long past when they're healthy for us. And that's something that I look at with, like, the one thing about Snowpaw in the modern era, it doesn't seem like she's fighting this fight, but it doesn't feel like she's got like a vengeance aspect to her anymore.
Mhm.
She's been around a long time. She's kind of like figured out her shit, for lack of a better term, right?
Yeah, right.
Right. So, whereas in like the early comic, like again, she's younger, and when you're younger, and one of the things I noticed too is you keep onto those passions a lot longer
Mhm.
than you do when you're older. When you're older, you kind of look at them a little differently. You can still carry those grudges,
Oh yeah.
but it's different. But it's very different when you're older.
Yeah,
Oh,
and I think too, like the whole like treading that line of like if you decide to do a revenge, it doesn't necessarily take away the pain either, you know. So it's one of those like if forgiving is harder than avenging, if you will.
it's harder. Ultimately, I think better because again, you're free, right? But
Right.
that's a very hard. But you're right. It's a hard step to come to. So,
Mhm.
and she certainly has plenty of reason to be mad at this guy. I mean, especially at the end of issue one. Folks, honest to God, before we continue, if you guys are listening or watching this, however you're doing this, um, definitely pick up issue one if you can. It's actually, like I say, it's my favorite book so far this year, right? I think the only thing that comes close to that for me is The Last Ronin. I hope you understand why that one comes close. But it's a really, really good book. It's very different than what you typically get in a werewolf story. So if anyone watching, listening, check out Snow Pond #1. We'll send the link up at the end of the episode, but definitely come check that out. So yeah, like I really enjoy that issue a lot. So
Yeah, and I'm really looking forward to hearing what you think about the second one. Like I said, even the art that's been like Mog has been putting out right now has been just phenomenal, and I can't wait till this issue's done.
no, it's interesting. Like watching her Magu's work, like she's carving just a hell of a niche for herself in comics right now.
Mhm.
It's gonna be interesting to see where she is in a couple of years. But so you mentioned this earlier, like movies or television, video games, yay, nay?
I would love to have a video game. I mean, you know, I'm a former like gamer. I'm, you know, not like the multiplayer gamer, but I mean, I like dive into RPG storylines, and you know, like I just love you know that like you know Legend of Zelda or the Skyrim, you know, Elder Scrolls, stuff like that. You know, and I think for me too, like it's a little bit my stress relief. You know, so whenever like it's very rare that I get a moment to play a game myself. But like you know, that's for me. Like I'll sit down and I'll get my controller and I'll just go to town. You know? I would love to see a werewolf game. That's one thing that you don't get to see much of.
I'm actually surprised comic creators don't go that direction more, to be honest. I mean, everybody talks about the movie deal, but I'm looking at the video game industry, right? It almost feels like a better, like for lack of a better term, it's a better peanut butter to your jelly.
Yeah.
That's just kind of how I see it because it hits a lot of the same strings comics do, and it
Hmm.
can add a layer to it like it's a video game. Like
Yeah.
Nightwolf as a video game could be like an action adventure like Zelda,
Oh,
where you
yeah.
have the occasional like side quest here and there as
Well, it's
well.
funny that you mentioned that. Like part of so whenever I first started working on Nightwolf back in like when I was in my teens, I also was thinking about going to school for computer animation and video game development. So I was writing a script, kind of like coinciding with Nightwolf, that had it was a similar genre, similar idea where like you know there was werewolves, vampires, and stuff like that. But I wrote a cinematic script, and kind of like you know Final Fantasy VII had like really in-depth cinematics, and you know led into you know to the gameplay and everything. So I actually had a script that I started and characters that I thought about doing and you know working, and I had like level ups and like the stuff all that like with the characters and like where they meet different characters and things you can add to the story. You know, it was like that kind of an RPG. Um, so long story short, that script never went anywhere. And when I was finishing up the 12 issues of Nightwolf, I wanted to make issue 12 a double-sized issue, not just a 24, so it was a 48-page issue. And to be able to do that, I was like, okay, well now I have to go back to the other ones, kind of rearrange some things. And then there was a period where I was like, oh, there's a chunk of pages that I'm missing. I either rewrite, or that I was like, oh, wait a minute. I could take this script that I'm probably never going to use, inject the cinematic perfectly into this position, like so. It really, kind of say what it is. In issue 2, during the homecoming, that scene where the sun's going down and then there's monsters at the dance. That was the cinematic scene that I had written out, and it fits so perfect for it. So I was like, well, hey.
Well, but like you just illustrated my point for me. Like it's like a peanut butter and jelly kind of thing, right? Because it fits perfectly. I'm like you. I used to be once upon a time a big Street Fighter guy. Like I used to be a big Street Fighter guy, but now it's Persona or the Tales games or like just an individual game to play
Yeah.
because I like it. It's a great stress relief. The only thing is, like much like you, I can't do it for too long because there's just it video games hit the same creative springs of her creatives that making your own work does, which is why Skyrim's a trap. Skyrim is just a
Really
trap.
is, yeah.
Yes.
Well, after playing Skyrim, I played it for a while. I beat it, and then I went back and played it again, but I didn't beat it the second time just because I was like, all right, this is just a filler for me to do stuff. The first time was like I had to finish it, but like the second time around was just like that was my stress relief. I'm gonna go in there, I'm gonna kill a dragon, or turn into a werewolf because I went down that route.
Of course you would.
Yeah, and so with I lost track where I was going. But oh yeah, so but what you're saying about like I prefer to do those type of games because for me it's like watching a movie because you get to see it play out. It's a longer story, it's more enjoyable, and then that's I kind of enjoy being able to unlock a lot of those like side quests and then go down that route because they tell their own stories. So I was actually there's a time where I was working with a friend from college, and I was like, hey, let's do a comic and let's call it side quest. And it's going to be all about how the side quest totally fucked up the whole situation for the main story. But then I found out somebody else did that.
Oh, so there's a game called Dynasty Warriors. So Dynasty Warriors, it's basically samurais killing hordes and hordes of minions. It's kind of like what if the samurai, like ancient Chinese soldiers, were like Star Wars characters, essentially, right?
Yeah.
So, so there's an alternative scenario with like there's one of the secret hidden characters in the game. You get him, you get to use him, and it's just it wrecks the whole plot of the game, just wrecks it completely. It ends up you have to take on everybody because he just keeps interfering in everybody else's stuff. So he unites the land against him.
Nice.
So yeah, it's just like this is totally not what you signed up for when you played this game.
Right.
It's like it's great, right? But that's the thing about games, right? Games have this ability to like the one thing a game can do that a book cannot is interact with the player.
Right.
That interaction is a part of how you tell a story in a game, and it's a big part of it. So you can do these cool things, and like I'm doing my Alice in Wonderland. I'm doing a board game with it.
Oh, nice.
That board game adds a different layer of story. That interaction creates a different experience. I can't match that in a book, but in a game, I can do those things, right? So when I look at like games, and that's what I said. Like it's shocking to me that movies is. I get why movies was such a big goal from a financial standpoint, but it seems to me, I think the future for a franchise or intellectual property is games, not movies so much, but games. It feels like even movies are decentralizing. Like comics have hit this decentralized renaissance. That's how I describe it, right? Because your books are on par with something that would have come out with like the old Malibu line or like Boom, like an earlier Boom line or Image, right, way back in the day. But now it's like you have this ability. It's like I can do this on my own. And I have this property now that I can take wherever I want to go, and I don't necessarily have to play with the companies. Now, you might still want to play with the companies. That's why, like, it's not. I'm not saying that's not a goal, but you don't have to. Now it's just about taking a property and going, where can I do with it? But entertainment seems to be decentralizing more and more as I get older / wiser, whatever the case may be with me, right? And And I see it like that because it's just like that just makes sense. So I think the objective now is like I'm looking at the last place that's going to get decentralized is games, because games still sell. But I like you've seen it on television. I'm seeing it with movies. I'm like lesser extent, but comics for sure. Like I think comics in 5 years is going to be fully decentralized. Not I don't think it's ever going to go back to like a two company system ever again.
Oh
I think
no!
that
At this point, I think the dam is broken, and the big two are struggling.
well, they're going to become a niche. Like they're still going to be around, but they're
Oh
going
yeah,
to be a niche. They're going to be a niche part of the market. They're not going to be the main market anymore.
right.
Diamond broke in 2020, and since that dam has broken, like it's never going. That genie's never going back into the bottle again. Now it's just going everywhere, and thanks to Kickstarter, Indiegogo, to a lesser sense, the places like Unbound, like you have the ability to create an audience for yourself, and I
Mhm.
think that's amazing. I think that's one of the coolest things about. I think why comics are healthy today is that freedom now.
Oh yeah.
I could be,
No, I
you
totally
know,
agree. I mean, I think the indies have had a bit of a golden age because of being able to do it themselves. And crowdfunding has been like the main factor in that for sure.
yeah. So I mean, and I don't see that stopping anytime soon. There might be like a stabilizing period for like at some point, but it's not going away. Like
Yeah.
I like, and you're building an audience right now. That's not going to go away either. I don't think. I think people are going to be, especially as you keep making more and more stuff.
Mhm.
It's like, oh, this is a Rob Multari book. I mean, you might be like the next. You might become a Todd McFarlane or a Peter David or a John Ostrander just in indie realm, or an Eric
That would be
Larson. Yeah,
amazing,
it's possible.
right?
Like it's entirely possible. It's just you got to think in terms of it's not just the stories you tell. I think the big difference between today and let's say the 80s or 90s is um, it's the name. Your name matters a lot more now because we
Oh
have
yeah,
again we're on a show bullshitting right now. Like that's what we're doing, right?
right. Yeah.
And right, and I have more access to you because partially because of what I've done, but also in part because that's just the nature of the
Mhm.
world today. So I think Raw Multuri, the name, is as important as Nightwolf and Snowpaw and everything else you're working on as well.
Oh
So
yeah.
if you play your cards right, dude, you might be there in like 4 or 5 years. It's not that unbelievable. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, and I think too, like a lot of people, and I've even heard other people say it, like, they buy not just for the story, but also who it is they like supporting, the creator, and especially if they're nice, they tell great stories, they're entertaining. I mean, it's a persona too, like, and I'm not as like out there as a lot of other creators. I'm usually more like during like Kickstarter time. I'm like in everybody's face, and then I kind of like sit back and I do all the work behind the scenes, afterwards. But yeah, no, it is. It's like if people like you and they like reading your stuff, you're entertained by it, then that's kind of like where a lot of like you know groundbreaking comics come from now as well. Is because if people don't like you, they're gonna be like, I'm not even touching that.
But I mean, I think that's a big part of like, that's always been a part of business too, right? Some people like certain brands, some people don't. And I think that's become more of a thing. And like I said, now, I know this might hurt people's feelings, but I'm not everybody's favorite brand of ice cream, and nor are you. But the people that really love you, right? That's what you want, right? That's the real goal, and you want that audience to get as big as you can.
Mhm.
But but really, like you write really cool werewolf slash superhero slash horror slash, I guess, history too, a little bit as well.
Historical fantasy.
Yeah. But I mean, you have a certain niche that you're hitting, and I think and I applaud you for it. I think it's really cool. And like I said, I really dig Snowpaw. Nightwolf is a very solid book as well. And like I said, I would not have gotten your books if I hadn't met you and Mog hadn't mentioned Italian porn. That completely
It all came full circle.
yeah, came full circle. Yes. See, that's a truly bonding moment where Mog made us both speechless at the same time right off the bat. It was like,
That she did.
yes. Yes. So, ladies and gentlemen, like go back to that episode, and you'll get to listen and watch that
It was a
one.
good one. It was a good one.
Yeah, it was a good one. But going back to what I'm saying now, like that's the thing about now is like there's this really cool opportunity as a creative, like right now. Even like me as a like I write more like novels and other stuff like that. Not so much comics, although I have dabbled a little bit more this year in comics. But the thing is, I can establish a brand without going to a publisher.
Mm-hmm.
That's very, very powerful leverage for someone in the creative field. It's like
Oh, yeah.
I don't now it doesn't mean I don't necessarily want certain publishers, but I don't need them. And that's a beautiful spot to be in.
Oh yeah, yeah. That gives you all the leverage too when they come to you and say they want to sit at the table. When they give you a deal that is more in favor of them, you can be like, oh,
It's like no, you gotta get like, well, that's the thing. Like you're a businessman. Like that's the other thing too. Like I think this is also forcing creative people to become more business-like. You have to,
Yeah.
because you recognize the fact that intellectual property is the biggest financial. It's actually the most lucrative thing out there. Like I'm in a Starbucks right now. You see that logo there? It's someone drew that.
right?
I go down the street, like go down to like there's like an Arby's and a Golden Arches, and there's stories everywhere we go. So this stuff is super valuable. It's just now, I think what's happening with from a creative standpoint is we're being forced to look at our stuff a lot more honestly. It's like, no, our shit is actually valuable. Now let's figure out what's the best way to utilize that stuff.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, definitely, for sure. I mean, I've had and I've had a couple like offers here and there from people that are like, hey, would you be interested in working with us as a publisher? And I'm like, let's see. Let me see what your offer is first. I'm not gonna. I'm like, I'm interested in learning more about the opportunity.
Well, sure, you're a businessman. It's like I'll hear your offer, but what am I getting out of this?
Yeah, yeah. Exactly.
And that's a cool spot to be in, right? And I mean, I get that spot too a little bit with this podcast every so often when I deal with PR companies and marketing companies. It's like, so they're like, we can help you. Oh, how are you going to help me?
Yeah.
Because it's
Yeah, where's the ROI on that? Because I'm pretty sure that I'll be helping you more than you're going to be helping me.
that's pretty much it. There's one particular. I'm not going to name names. You might know the person. He came to me and went to me, hey, we want to put our logo on your podcast. I go, well, that's a sponsorship deal, bud. Right. So, what are you offering me? And I wasn't impressed with what I heard, so I did a little investigating and I asked some questions and I gave him a proposal, expecting a firm no, because I just knew that this wasn't like this. But that's the thing too. I have that confidence to figure out like what I'm worth. I think, like you said, that's probably the biggest battle for the next couple of years. Is there's a lot of great properties out there. The trick now is, I think, as a whole, recognizing your worth and where you want to go. So I'm going to ask a really big question for you. Do you still want to do a movie deal? Do you still want to do video games? Like what's your big end goal if you have one?
I mean, I definitely think you've definitely opened up to the idea of looking into video games more now. It always has been like an idea for sure. I mean, don't get me wrong. I was always like kind of like, oh, well, we have like this, now we have this. But I think a long-term either TV or streaming series, I think if done right. Now, and whether because for me the technology has to be there too, because I don't want them to look like hairy dudes, and I don't want them to look like rat dogs. You know what I mean? Like they have to look right. Like the aesthetic has to be there. So if the technology can do it in a TV series or streaming series, that's definitely something that I think that has more longevity than movies. Like I said, if you look at The Walking Dead, I keep going back to that because it's been on for how many seasons? It's ending this year, but it has so many spin-offs. It's still continuing. So maybe the main series, the comic series, just ended last year?
2 years ago, but it was not that long ago. Yeah.
But now they're doing it in color. So they basically stopped the original black and whites, and now they're re-releasing in color.
Well, yeah, because again, it's just smart business too, right? Because okay, now somewhere down the road, let's say you do we're going to say 36 issues because that's what you act 1, act 2, act 3, right? you do your 36 issues, you get your television series, you get your video game franchise, and you go through that cycle for about 4, 5, or 6 years. Well, then there's the resale value, right? Making that trade paperback, making that trade paperback, maybe doing a novelization of it again, maybe a different kind of gaming system like a D&D. Or
Yeah.
the idea is you can take a property and you can constantly sell and resell and resell. Walking Dead did like, okay, I'm going to be perfectly blunt. Outside I love the first 50 issues of The Walking Dead,
Right.
but after that, I was done. It was just like, but it was genius. I'll never like, as much as I prefer Kirkman's Invincible over, like, I think his Invincible is his best work. That's my opinion, right? But that said, the fact that he's been able to, the property allowed it so he could do television. He could do a movie. Like the movie is not outside the realm of possibility there. It's just it has to be the right story, but it's there, right? There's definitely a possibility of that. There's also like the fact that video games have been made, games have been made. Like you got
it's got mobile apps, it's got video games, it's got all kinds of like use out of this single IP.
Yeah. So, and that's also a credit to him and his management team, because like I really loved Game of Thrones. I really, really loved Game of Thrones, except for like the last season kind of killed it. Like,
yeah,
it kind of killed it because.
Right there with you. I was so like at that last episode, I hung on and I'm like,
I knew it went off a cliff before that. Like early into the last season, I just realized that it was just like, nope, it's not going to go well. I missed the big Daenerys reveal, and I'm kind of glad it did, because I really not how I would have done that in a million years. And I think that everybody was mad for obvious reasons there. It's just like, right, but now you can't. You might down the road be able to do a movie series again somewhere down the road, but you essentially killed that franchise for the next 5 to 10 years, right? Whereas The Walking Dead, okay, you're right, main series is coming to an end, and eventually the spinoffs will too, but he'll have something like a 10, 12-year run, and that's not. And like I said, there's room for a movie, there's room for more video games, there's room for more apps, there's room for more, again, peripheral things.
Yeah.
And so the franchise will never go away. Whereas Game of Thrones, I really liked it. I really, really did. Why?
Well, maybe they'll do something with this spinoff or prequel that they got going on.
Well, they're hoping, but the thing is, they've killed their interest, right? It's already got, the deck is stacked against it right off the bat because of what happened there.
Mm.
Walking Dead never felt like, again, not my favorite thing, but it was true to the series. Never really deviated from that.
Yeah.
So it's never lost its fan. Like, again, it had its peak. I think it's past its peak point.
Yeah.
But it's like The Simpsons, right? The Simpsons is like,
it's ongoing, forever.
Yeah. Actually, it was truly the great zombie series, The Simpsons or The Walking Dead? Like, which one do you think it's?
Yeah. Touche, sir. Touche.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to argue at this point that The Simpsons aren't like zombified at this point. They're just a walking, like.
Yeah, they never age.
Yeah, they never age. And
they're yellow.
Yeah. Like, I actually had this really terrifying thought that The Simpsons. I was born before The Simpsons started, but I realized that The Simpsons might outlive me, and I'm oddly at like it's something I realized. It was like, damn, like, of all the things. I'm more at peace with Futurama outliving me. Like, I think like that's just.
Well, they keep rebooting the crap out of Futurama. I mean, it's like they keep trying to like kickstart it again.
Well, yeah, but Futurama's actually funny. Like, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah. Believe me, it's funny because like I loved so I'm a little bit older than you, obviously, because you were born like after The Simpsons started. I was born right.
I was born before it. I was born before it too.
Oh, okay.
I was a kid. I was a kid when The Simpsons initially.
Yeah, I remember being in first grade and watching it. My mom was like, "You can't watch this." I'm like, "Why? It's on Fox."
Yeah, I was like, The Simpsons was great from like 91 to like 97, 98. It was great.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It wasn't good. It was great. Like Monorail is still one of the funniest episodes
Yeah.
ever. Right? It's still hilarious even to this day. But somewhere along the way, like again, it's the show has completely changed, and it's not my show anymore. Much like sometimes the comic book run, right? There are
Right.
comics I really liked back in my day, like back when I was, yelling at clouds and going, it was great. But they're not my books anymore.
Right.
It's not my show anymore, and I recognize that, and that's part of the evolution. I think that's like the final form / like creative. It's almost like creative death / like financial security the rest of your life, and that's like when your creative property becomes a fast food joint. Let's be honest, like the Simpsons and McDonald's have very similar comparisons,
I mean, yeah, if you think about it, and I think the whole, like you said, it's not mine anymore because I think a lot of it, the writers have changed hands so often, and it's been on for so long. Right now, like there's a generation, like you said, probably wasn't even born in that first time period of where it was really great. They're probably the one. I'm not saying that what they're writing isn't good for them, but like tastes change with generations and time.
Oh, absolutely. Although, like I said, they actually there is a YouTube online of how a Simpsons joke works then versus now.
Mhm.
Oh my gosh, the level of detail in the jokes before were just like, holy crap, right? But again, it serves different needs now too. Like again, it's not just about me. And we all hope for a series like Mac Running. You know what? I can see why he's happy with it. I'd be happy too.
Yeah,
I
right.
mean,
Yeah.
right? I'd have to live with the bell curve, but if that's the worst thing, I could live with it at a certain point. I had my run, and the one good thing good thing about comics and television and even video games, if you don't like where a series goes, you can always go back to the ones you really love, right? Because they're still always around, right?
Oh yeah.
You talk about Zelda. I'm an Ocarina of Time guy. I love Ocarina of Time. Now, it's a simple game compared to what's out now.
Yeah.
But it still holds a certain nostalgic
So
charm.
fun, yeah. Like I'll go back, and if before I had kids and I had a little bit extra time in my life, I would go back. I would play that. I would play A Link to the Past. I would play
That's
the first two
sweet.
original. Because I still have my NES, and
I'm a little jealous actually.
and
I'm a
I
little
still have Game Genie too. So like, just to be able to fast track those first two games, I'll plug in the Game Genie and just go for fun.
Oh, I love the Game Genie. So the Game Genie allowed me to play like the super hard Nintendo games like
Right?
Captain Skyhawk,
Yeah.
Marble Madness a little bit too, because the Infinite Life Code is just
Yes.
it's a
Yeah.
sweet
Oh,
little.
much.
Oh
Game
my gosh.
the
Oh yeah, no, Game Genie was
only game
beautiful.
that I still was never able to beat was the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles for NES.
Oh,
That game
is.
was so hard, and they didn't give you cheat for crap for the Game Genie.
But the worst thing about that game okay, it's not the hardest one I ever played. The hardest one for me was the original Ghouls and Ghosts. That the random ghouls just, my God, like that game is so hard. But Turtles was the thing about me. Turtles really unfair was if you died, no matter how far you advance, you start at the beginning again.
Yeah,
Exactly. It's like
yeah. And there was no like with the Game Genie, they didn't give you infinite lives either. Like actually, I take that back. They gave you infinite lives, but like you said, if you died, you went back to the beginning. So if like they would have gave you infinite life, like hearts or whatever, like you didn't die, like that would have been like I could at least seen what happened at the end of the game.
yeah, but also what ruined that game for me too is it also came out at the same time as the arcade game. Back when the arcades were a thing.
So much better.
Oh yeah, way better.
Oh yeah.
Dude,
Yeah.
it felt like that's the Ninja Turtle game you wanted to play.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
Right. Yeah. So and I died plenty of times playing that Ninja Turtle game. I in the arcade kicked my butt so many times. I didn't care. It was worth it.
Like I'm gonna put these quarters in. I'm lining them up.
Yeah, exactly. No, it was beautiful like that, but that's that's what you wanted the turtle to say. That was the other thing about the old Nintendo Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle game was it didn't feel like you were playing a turtle game.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
right? Where,
yeah. It wasn't. There was. I don't know if it was like the deal they had or the development company or whatever the case was. It wasn't. It just wasn't as good as it could have been, which was the arcade game.
yeah, which was sweet. I mean, but to the Turtles' credit, at least they didn't have the same license as Superman had.
Yeah,
Yikes!
yeah.
A good Superman game has yet to actually truly be made.
I've never
There's
seen one. Yeah,
yeah, and it hurts because that should be like easy, but
you would think so. Yeah.
yeah,
I was watching. Somebody did a. It was a kind of like a watch kind of a. It was an animated. What could be using like some of the similar things that are out there now, like some of those engines like the Rocksteady and all those other ones that are out there. Somebody did a development one that like you could see him flying, like it was like free form, kind of like the Lego DC games where you could see him flying through the town and doing all that. It's kind of similar to that, but like with an actually decent animated and sculpted Superman. So if somebody would take that idea and run with it, I think they would have a blockbuster.
well, Superman. So I mean, Superman's like should be like the ultimate gamer's dream. But the thing is, you need like for Superman to work, you need an open world.
Yeah,
You have to have flying. You have to have it.
course.
There's no way you can get around that.
Yeah.
I think the challenge with a Superman game is okay, if he's on Earth, he's like ridiculously strong. When he's in outer space, you can actually like make the game hard. I think making the game hard on Earth is the hard part for Superman.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, you definitely would have to have the challenges to make it worth playing. Otherwise, it's just going to be like destroy, punch.
Yeah, exactly. But you don't want Silver Surfer either. Do you remember the Silver Surfer Nintendo game?
Yep.
One hit, he dies, and he's just like, wait, what? It's like most arguably the most powerful hero in Marvel. One hit, just dies.
Yeah. No,
Every,
you know what?
it's
That
like,
was another thing about the Wolverine game.
yeah,
You ever play that for it was Super Nintendo? And his basically his healing factor didn't work for shit. He he had like I think 6 hits and he died. I'm like, where's my healing factor? Damn it.
well, I think with a Wolverine game, like what I would do there, I give him a healing factor. I have him still be able to KO a certain number of hits, but if he got away and had time to recover,
Yeah.
he'd recover.
That's how the one for it was the PlayStation 2 game. You remember that? It was supposed to be the X2 for the movie, but it wasn't really. It was just basically a Wolverine game that he started out in like the leather outfit, but you could get skins to change it. But like that's how it was. It had the healing factor, like, but if you maxed it out, you would die. But
Yeah.
you got a chance, like, and you were able to. And what I loved about it is like it had that. It was if you ever played Batman Arkham Asylum, you know how like when he puts on the goggles and then you see like the people throughout the the heat signatures and stuff like that. That was kind of like how Wolverine's senses were. If you press that button, you could see the scent trails, the people's through the walls, kind of like a situation like that. I mean, it was, and you could actually claw things, like climb up walls with the claw. It was like it was more open world, but like in a closed area. You know what I mean?
And that's totally fine. That works for a Wolverine game.
Exactly.
Right? That would
Yeah.
that totally work for a Wolverine game.
Mm.
Superman would be a hard game if you based it just on Earth. But if you added some outer space stuff to it, you could
exactly.
you could do some cool stuff with that. Like you would think. Because Batman Arkham Asylum is an amazing game. It's really
well, and even all of the Arkham Asylum City, all in the prequel, and then like Arkham Knight. All of those games I enjoyed thoroughly, and I would love to go back and play all of them in order, just for shits and giggles if I ever had a moment. But yeah, it is.
Well, I get that, but that's the experience, like what we're talking about, because that feels like a Batman game. Mostly, it's a little bit of like a thief game, like kind of feel like you're sneaking, but even so, it doesn't matter. It fits. It's perfect. It works. Yeah. It's so good. And
I'm actually kind of hoping that the Arkham Knights, where it's like Robin, Nightwing, Red Hood, a Batgirl. I'm hoping that game has a similar gameplay, because that would be sick.
I just want to be a little less thiefy because it's Nightwing, Batgirl. Like, it shouldn't be quite as in the shadows.
Yeah, right. But it should be like I think, but like even the fighting style in that, was like because you just get no crowd of them, and you would just jack people, like
No, like I say, it was like I said, my things with Batman are nitpicks. They're not exactly like I'm not gonna
Yeah,
say it's like they're not big because it's Arkham Asylum. It's really really good.
right.
And the whole
Oh,
series is super good.
yep.
But no, like right, you would think like going back full circle talking about like your properties like as a video, like I said, as games, like, they can last theoretically forever because I like again maybe I'm certainly biased. I'm not gonna like I'm definitely gonna acknowledge. Actually, here's a thought. Like some you talked about streaming series. How about a cartoon? Yay, nay? Like, what do you feel about that?
Again, I thought that kind of goes back to the where the technology is. If the technology for a live action isn't where I want it to be, I would definitely go for like a Castlevania style
Mhm.
animation because I think one the drawing style caters to that perfectly, and I think a lot of like my like the fighting scenes in my head and kind of like how like Carlos has drawn them out would play like a lot of those fast action fighting, where Belmont's getting the whip and jumping, running up on things, and like a lot of like that action that I had staged in my head would play very well to an animation,
Yeah.
and would be like super cinematic. So yeah, I'm open to it. Again, if like the live action, isn't there as far as like the aesthetics.
Well, well, again, certain. I acknowledge biases. I'm enjoying cartoons more than I'm enjoying live action these days. That might be a sign of my maturity level. That might be entirely it.
I
But
get it. I for a long time like it took me a long time to like to watch like and it's like that's I'm not watching that. Like even into my teens, I'm like, I don't want to watch a sitcom. That's
well, no, I think what's happened with me, like I stopped watching TV for a long time.
yeah,
So for me, going back into a television like environment is odd at this point. It feels odd,
yeah,
right? Um, whereas if I watch an animated, if for some reason it's easier for me to watch something animated now. It's just easier because it's like
well, anime
it,
actually has really good storylines too. So
oh,
I mean,
absolutely no. Like if we're talking about anime, like I'm a big Full Metal Alchemist guy. I love that
yes,
show
nice.
so much, right?
Oh,
Um,
I know. That's a good show.
yeah, I know. It's a wicked show. I'm a big like I love that kind of stuff because I like I think you. But if you talk about like North American stuff, I love the Harley Quinn show.
Hmm.
I think it's very intelligent. Like it's definitely not for kids,
No,
but I
no,
think it's
yeah,
but I do think like if you look at the Harley Quinn animated show, it's like that works. It fits Harley perfectly.
right, yeah,
I don't think I'd want to see that as a live action, if that makes sense, because I don't think it's
yeah,
believable.
no, yeah. And I
Yeah.
think and I of all of the Batmans, like all the movies, I still say that the animated series, was the probably the best, I think, version of Batman and the Joker, if you will. And what's that? I think that's another thing why I love the Arkham series because it takes that and makes it darker because it's the same voice actors, but like they're like Mark Hamill going from like the animated series, has that bubbly, funny Joker, whereas like then he goes full on homicidal in like the game, and I'm like, oh my god, this is amazing.
I actually think the most homicidal though Hamill was though honestly was the Batman Beyond movie.
Yes.
Joker Jr. is like terrifying. When you see that reveal, it's like wow.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Just like whoa. Like that if you want to see the Joker at his absolute darkest, that's up
Yeah.
there, I think.
Yeah. Well, Beyond took it to a whole nother level, like in itself.
Well, no, but like it still fit the Paul like yeah, like I agree with you. The Paul Dini era of the Batman animated series is fantastic. It feels like Batman. Like it just
Mhm.
feels like a good Batman show. And I mean, they liked it so much they tried to copy it with Superman. It wasn't quite as good, but it still was. But I mean,
Yeah, it was close. It was again, they still haven't done Superman perfectly in anything. But if you're gonna like compare, and contrast to like that was probably one of the better renditions.
yeah, I still think the best Superman story is still All Star Superman, both the comic and movie or series or whatever that was, right?
Yeah.
It's just like that was the best Superman I've seen. Yeah, I will never make anybody subject anyone to Superman 64 for the Nintendo 64. That game is terrible.
I'm like, this is just like watching the cartoon. What's going on here?
It's worse because the
Yeah.
controls suck too. Like,
Yeah. I think again, it was one of those things where it's like the game idea was ahead of its time, but the technology just couldn't handle it.
it hurt to watch. It just hurt to watch. Like I say, it's just but like I said, one day Superman will be good. We hope. I hope. Just like Game of Thrones might be good again someday, right? Maybe.
Listen, I'm not gonna lie. I'm gonna watch the prequel just to see how it goes.
That's fine. No. Hey, listen. That is. I understand. I understand. If it hurts, like from me to you right now, big hug. I understand. Like I'll understand what you're saying too.
we'll have a crying like session afterwards. I'm like, I was so bad.
No, it'll just be like, when we do eventually meet at a con somewhere, we'll just talk. Like we'll mention the Italian porn joke in person, of course. But after that, we'll have a little cry. We'll have a cry in the corner. This could have been good. What happened? But and people will ask why we're crying. It's like, I'm not crying, you're crying. That kind of thing. Like, that'll be the in-person thing, right? So, but I figure next year, like the pandemic, in terms of the pandemic aspect, things seems to be over. I'm sure we're going to have things to deal with in the years to come, but by and large, it's done. So I think next year I'll be back to looking at doing shows in the States again. And I'm sure at some point I'll run into you and everybody else I've had the pleasure of meeting in the last.
Oh, that would be amazing.
Yeah.
We definitely have to, if like we get the opportunity, we have to plan one where you, me, and Mog, and everybody just kind of can all be in the same place and just.
Oh, I'm like, my secret plan for that is Mog, On, and Mel all in the same place.
Yeah.
Because I'm working with on something. Mog's the reason I got into drawing, ironically enough. It's just like she basically, she kind of just wrenched myself into, like, I'm at, like, she wrenched me into it. I started drawing on the air. I still do that with guests from time to time. And she was like, I like, she's doing these draws and bids, and she'd watch my progress, and she's like, no, you got to do it. Like, come on. And awesome. I have, like, yeah, I know. So I owe Mog big, and the little thing is, On was my first drunken draw guest on Vu. So she gave me my first art lesson on the air, which I think is actually kind of cool. So I kind of want to, I kind of want to meet them all together, because I kind of feel like that. But I mean, there's so many people. I want to meet you. I want to meet Matt Knowles and Steph Cannon. I want to meet, because so me and Matt, Matt, Chuck, and I are big metal guys. Like, we're big metal guys. So occasionally I'll send both of them metal stuff, because I get to interview metal bands now for the show on a regular basis. So I get to listen to some stuff. It's like, hey, check this out.
Yeah.
Right. So I want to meet them. I want to meet. There's a lot of people. No, I honestly feel like, no bullshit. I kind of feel like I'm a very fortunate guy. I get this opportunity all the time to talk to these incredible people from all over the United States that are doing incredible things, including you. Like, you're doing incredible things in comics. You've established yourself. Like you have a brand. It's really, really good. You make great books. You have great people you work with. It's not if you're going to get bigger, it's when. Like, that's just like, that's honest. Like, you've done a really good job. And
thank you.
Yeah. And it's not just you. There's a lot of, the next couple of years are going to be really interesting, because again, I do think there's going to be it's not going to die, but I think there's going to be like a stabilization point with Kickstarter. And it's going to be really interesting to see how you guys navigate that. Because once you navigate that, those of you still standing are going to do really, really well. Like, that's what I see. That's kind of what I see happening. Like, I look at someone like Russell Nolte, for example. Like, he's like probably the best freaking customer service I've ever seen on Kickstarter by a shot. right? See where he takes it, like where you are going to take it, where like Mog's going to take. Kurt Zauer's another guy that's really really good, right? He does some really good stuff. Like there's so many people that are doing so many cool things. I'm very curious. Like, again, that couple of years, there's going to be like a point where it's going to be like a tip, and then it'll go down for a sec, and then it's going to go back up, and then it'll kind of have this steady pulse. Like there'll be an equilibrium in the industry, is what I
Right.
think is going to
Yeah.
happen, right?
Yeah.
Right, and that's great, and I think that'll be great for everybody. It's going to be like I said, it's just so in the next year, if I get the opportunity to meet some of you, fantastic. All of you, I have like this giant list,
Sure. Okay. Like, let's see. I get
met him, met her, met him, right? And do really really terrible, like for example, Kaylin Smith. I don't know if you know Kaylin Smith or not.
Yeah.
So she's got like this like scary ass scowl. So the joke is when I do finally meet her in person, right? We're gonna figure out a way to put me upside down so she's like taking my lunch money. She's got like the take the like, yeah, because she's got like she's also one of the kindest people in the industry. It's not even like close. She's super sweet,
Yeah.
but she's got that scowl is just
she really,
right. So
she got that intimidating look, but like like you said, matter of fact, I actually wanted to reach out to her. She's on my list of variant cover artists that I wanted to do for issue 2.
yeah, no, I've quietly talked to her about doing covers for my books too. Like I said, she's perfect. Like she's like someone that's ahead of the curve. She's got her niche.
Oh yeah,
and she's fantastic. And she's fantastic at what she does. She's absolutely fantastic. And I think in the future, in the future, like she's gonna be fine no matter what. And she's got that wonderful thing where she can do what she wants. So,
yeah.
and that's the ultimate dream for all of us, right? So, I mean, I'm nearly there. I don't know, like like for you, we're not going to talk like obviously. I don't need to know your finances. That's not what I'm asking. But I also get the feeling you're going to come to a point, if you're not there already, where you're starting to see some serious money for this.
So yeah,
And
I'm not to the point where I can make this my full-time gig, but it's
yeah,
to the point where it's paying for itself. That I don't, that my wife and I are very like we can, I work my full-time job, family stuff completely separate, and then this is all on its own, and it's fun. I don't have to actually put money into it anymore. So I'm
yeah.
very happy there.
No, you're at the point where now the wheel is going to get bigger. Like the wheel is on auto. Now it's just going to slowly get. That's a good spot to be in. That's a really really good spot to be in.
It's going to be like that scene from Spider-Man 2 when Doc Ock gets his machine stabilized and it starts going crazy.
It might I think the weirdest thing, like one of the best things I've seen on myself on a small scale. I'm sure you've seen this on a bigger scale. You wake up one day just doing what you're normally doing, and all of a sudden you look around and you're like, holy shit, how did this happen? Right? That's a cool moment when you get that, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's weird too because like I was lettering issue 6, and I'm thinking to myself, how much faster I've gotten at it, and like being like, oh yeah, I'm doing this, and then a lateral move to do something else. Like all the hats that I wear, like it's become like I have such a mechanism for everything that like I can easily just kind of like spin around and like get everything done in a timely manner and be like, oh wow. Without even thinking about it or stressing too much,
That's what we call unconscious competence. In other words, you're just doing it. No, and that's a great spot to be in. But what will happen? I had this again. I mentioned put this on my board the other day. So I'm at that point now. I'm not quite at living yet, but it's starting next month. It's going to be freaking close. Like it's really freaking close to the point where I don't need a full-time job anymore. I can go work at a Wendy's and I'm good. Right. Right. So, and anybody that listens to me, it's like, yeah, I'll work at a Wendy's because I don't care at that point. If I'm at that point, it doesn't matter. Right. So, but what's happening is I'm hitting that point, and I had talk with Elsa Garza. Right. Elsa is wow. The stuff she does is amazing. and I got like a really cool compliment from her, like a really really cool compliment from her, and it was just like me. And I'd look. Are you sure? You know, one of those things, and I just realized like it's one of those realizations that life you've envisioned for yourself, it's slowly coming to fruition,
Mhm.
little by little by little by little, and I think that is one of the most fantastic. That's fantastic. I mean, this I think creativity, like as a living, no matter what capacity you want it to be in, ultimately is about self belief.
Oh yeah, if you don't believe in yourself enough to be able to power through the self doubt, then that you're not going to succeed. But if you're stubborn enough and because like believe me, I get self doubt a lot. There's times where I'm like, matter of fact, I think yesterday I even had like a moment of like, oh, why this is like one of those days that makes it really hard to continue. But like if you're stubborn enough and you know that you're good enough, and you could power through that, just realign your thinking, and it's just
Yeah,
that's the sky's the limit at that point.
yeah. So I mean, like you're probably gonna get there. Like you're gonna probably get there before I do, just about the trajectory you're on. But you're gonna like as your franchises and stuff get really, really, really into really cool places, right? Suddenly that water wheel is going to get really big, and you're going to wake up one day going, "How did this happen?" In like the best way, right?
Yeah.
Right, and that I mean that's what we go for. It's strange, but I mean I truly do believe that. Like, if you can see it, if you can see that possibility, you believe that can happen, it will
Oh,
sooner or later. Maybe not the way you imagine it, but it does. How did you do this? I don't know. Like literally, sometimes that's how it goes.
honestly, I've been doing this for so long, I'm not even sure what went right.
Yeah, exactly. And that's how it goes. That, like that. I mean, that's really how it goes. I think in a lot of ways. But man, I mean, hey, so you've done how many comics have you done now? The 7?
So, yeah, 7, going on 8, 9.
Yeah, something.
Well, I mean, because like, well, now I have two teams working simultaneously. So, yeah, so we got we got the 7 comics published, working on 8 and 9 right now.
Yes, and I'm imagining. So, is it going to be Snowpaw 2 next, or is it going to be Night? Yeah,
Yeah, Snowpod 2 is next, and then Nightwolf 7, and so on and so forth, and until we can add another one, throw another, and see if we can juggle.
you'll get there. Like you'll get there. I think you will. And again, I don't know if this will be your full time job ever. I don't know if you're happy with your other job or not happy with your other job. That's like the answer to that question
I mean,
better
I'm
than I do.
comfortable. I like my job. I'm not, I'm
Yeah.
not in a hurry to leave it. But again, if this becomes its own thing and it's able to sustain my family like my full time job, then one's got to go, right?
Well, then it's obviously what you're going to choose. You're going to be like, and I'm done. Goodbye. Right. But,
I love the company I work for, and
oh yeah.
I work with a lot of great people, and I'm happy. And I get my work done, and then I go do my other work, and then I have family stuff, and I have a nice balance that I'm sure if I threw one more thing in there, it would probably throw it all off.
So that third comic might be like, do I really want to do this?
Well, that's why I was like with Snowpaw. I was like, okay, I'm balancing things really good right now. Let's see what happens. And it was like, okay, stumble for we got the guy. Ooh, okay, I got it. So we'll see what happens.
Well, it's also the people you work with too. They're really good. So because that makes it a lot easier to make that balance. But yeah, like
No, I think Mog and I have a great working relationship. Carlos and I have a great working relationship. My colorist cat, Bruno, and the other colors. And then I think the best decision that I made to keep the balance was to have Dave Lentz take over the lettering for Snowpaw, because I felt so comfortable with the fact that the script was so new, and I knew there wasn't going to be any like dialogue changes. You know what I mean? Like I do with like Nightwolf. So I was comfortable with handing that off to him, and he does a great job. So I think that freed me up to be able to continue doing what I'm doing with everything else. And that was probably one of the best decisions that, again, as a creative, I could just fire myself from that part.
Yeah. Well, it's also just also the fact that Nightwolf's kind of like you've been doing this as you've gone,
Mhm.
right? So it kind of has its own feel. Whereas Snowpaw is brand new. You don't have to be there, right? If you can get yourself out now, you don't have to worry about it later, right? Right. Right.
Yeah,
And that's
I'm still I'm hands on with every piece though. You know what I mean? Like
totally.
yeah, like you
No,
say,
no.
it's like like matter of fact, there was I'm really good about giving a little bit of artistic leeway, but if I have a particular way I want it to play out and be seen, I'm like matter of fact, this beginning of the second issue with Mog, I actually was surprised at how much I pushed on her to be like, no, we're gonna do it this way because that's how this has to play out for it to make sense later down the road. You know what I mean? Like, and that's not her fault. I mean, it just for me, it was one of those times that I'm like, no, this is how it has to
Oh
be.
yeah, no. And sometimes you have to, and then sometimes you're like, then sometimes it's the other way. It's like, no, they give you an idea. It's like,
Yeah,
this is better than what I did.
right,
Let's
exactly.
go with it. Yeah,
And we've had
that's cool.
yeah, and we've had a couple of those moments in the last issue, and I'm sure there'll be times again. It just like I said that the way the first couple pages came together had to be the way they were to be able to play out properly at the end of the issue.
Well, no, sometimes it's all about like the story you're trying to tell and how you're telling it. And
Right.
if you need to tell it a certain way, it has to go a certain way. It just does, right? There's no argument there. But at the flip side, right? Even then, you still let your creative team add their own little pieces to
Oh
it
yeah.
because it's their book too. As much as it's yours, it's theirs too. And honestly, dude, sounds like you're doing well. Like it sounds like you're doing very well and you're very happy. And that's all we can ask for at the end of the day, really.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, man. I'm very pleased with the way things are going. In fact, I can't wait to go. Like once we're done here, I'll be going and looking at some more pages that just came in. I can't wait to see what she's got for me.
No, I don't blame you. I don't blame you. In fact, let you get to that very, very shortly. Before we go, so Nightwolf 6 is on Backer Kit. Is that basically the
Yep. Yeah. So the quick link is the same. I just changed the Vanner URL, loneWolfComics.com/Nightwolf. That'll redirect you to the Bagger Kit pre order page, and that way you'll be able to pick up all of the variant covers of issue 6 as well as 1 through 5. And then you can also get Snowpaw there if you missed that campaign. You can, or if you want to pick up one of the variants, you can get those. Got everything listed there, and we get them pretty soon. Like I said, hopefully getting them from the printer within the month.
Yeah. Well, hey, that sounds really, really good. Hold on a second here. I'm gonna try to make myself look smart and sophisticated here as we wrap up. I think though, Mr. Rob, we have an interview here. What do you think?
I think so.
Yeah. I know. I sound like such a professional and stuff like that, right? So
It's all good. It's all good.
yeah, it's all.
You gotta do the business, right?
Well, we gotta do the business, right? So, Rob, when Snowpaw 2 comes out, you want to come back for some more BSing around?
Yeah, man, and I'll bring Mog with me. I know we love to
Yeah.
have.
Well, actually, you know what we should do? We should actually bring real Italian porn and give it to her on the air.
That would be awesome. Like here, we thought of you.
We thought of you just because the last time. All right, folks. This is where I'm currently doing a Kickstarter on. I have a short story, and I'm going to have an illustration here. This is Part-Time Comics mini comic double feature. Two of them. One basic reference of stories from Springfield. Another one based off Magic the Gathering. My story is on a Magic the Gathering. It is about a glorious glitter dragon that got altered in a way he did not like and decides to take it out on the player itself. It's kind of a fun little story there. Right now, I'm doing an advertising campaign for author J.E. Taylor. And if you want to be someone that I can advertise, let me just do this real quick here. I almost know what I'm doing, folks. I swear.
Promise.
So, if you guys are trying to advertise a project or yourselves, I have where I make words, graphics, audio and video, and it goes everywhere. So, at least on all my accounts, you definitely want to go check that out. Go check that out. And that will do it for this episode of Just Joshing. So tomorrow we're going to go a little bit later because of just some things. I'm going to be doing a drinking draw with Jocelyn Locking. She does yoga. She does illustrations. It's going to be a very interesting drink and draw. So definitely come check that out. And for everybody watching, everybody listening, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Stay inspired. Keep shining up. Thanks to Rob for coming in and putting up with me for over an hour.
Oh, thank
And
you. It didn't
yeah,
feel like it was an hour. Like we were having such a great time.
yeah. So thanks, guys. Take care of yourselves. Stay inspired. I'll see you guys tomorrow.